Welcome back to another election edition of Meet Victoria with Caleb Shaw, powered by ThriveFuel Digital Marketing. Early voting is April 25th through May 3rd, and Election Day is May 7th. We are blessed to have another candidate running for office in here, so I will let her introduce herself and let us know what office she is running for. So, young lady, if you don't mind.
I'm Theresa Klacman, and I'm running for District 1 School Board.
First off, thank you for doing that. It's always an intrusion into your personal time. You know, you have to leave the family, you have to go out and do all these interviews with people like me and talk to everybody, but I appreciate you for it, and thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's a sacrifice you make and to try to better your community, so thank you. I appreciate you for that.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, ma'am. What do you see as the role of a school board trustee, and more specifically, who do they answer to? Do they answer to the board? Do they answer to the VISD? Do they answer to the public? So, twofold. What do you see as the role of school board trustee, and who do they answer to?
Well, that's a good question, and I did not know before I decided to run, so I've been doing a lot of research myself to get some answers there. So the school board's responsibility is to set the goals and the vision for the school, for VISD, to set the budget and how the budget's going to be spent, and to hire the superintendent. So those are the main things that I have learned that we are responsible for. So it's quite big responsibility for someone. You know, I wanted to make sure that I was going to spend my time on something. It was going to be something worthwhile and not just checking off a box and saying yes to everything that someone's bringing to the table, and I'm just supposed to say yes and we go on, like some boards I've been a part of. You know, I wanted to really be able to make a difference, and with the responsibility that we have, we're responsible for quite a bit. And who do we answer to? We answer to the people who voted us into office. So we answer to our community.
Roger that. I know that school board, you know, you guys don't necessarily run as a Republican or a Democrat or anything like that. But that being said, I do think it's important to understand your ideology and kind of where you line up on that political spectrum, because, you know, are you fiscally conservative, or are you more of a tax and spend type person? And again, clarifying, I understand that this isn't how you all run, but I do like to ask the question because that helps me kind of gather your mindset of how you will approach these certain situations. And so, on that note, where do you align on the political spectrum?
Well, I think most people that know me will know that I am conservative.
Okay.
That is where I align. I do believe in hearing both sides out. I am not one to just shut out somebody's views because they don't align with mine. But I am conservative. I have conservative values. That's where I sit. I have a ministry in town, so of course I'm a Christian as well, and that's where my values are as well.
Roger that. Thank you so much.
Okay.
One of the things that I kind of, you know, see between VISD and the community right now is bond issues, and understanding that VISD does have some very real needs that they need met. You know,
Yes.
they really do. You know, there's buildings that need. There's just a lot, and I understand that. But it's also, I believe, has become a wedge between the community and the VISD as far as finger pointing. You know, the VISD and a lot of the teachers and admin, they don't feel appreciated from the community because they didn't get the bond passed and they didn't get these items. And in the flip side of that, you have the community that feels frustrated because they've shot down 2, 3, 4 of these things now, and they just seem to keep coming, and they don't feel like they're getting the accountability on this side that they want. You know, and it's, I feel like it's become an us versus them type of thing, when I really feel like we're all on the same side, but it's become a wedge issue. And how do we go about bridging that gap between, for lack of better terms, pro and anti-bond? And again, I would argue that most of the anti-bond people aren't really anti-bond people.
No, they're not.
Because don't get me wrong, I would love to drive down and pass huge, beautiful schools and state of the art and all that. I would love to have that in the community. I just think it's one of those things that has to be earned first, or I just don't think we're there for the taxpayers and stuff like that. But how do we bridge that gap where the teachers feel appreciated, where the students feel appreciated, but also the taxpayers feel appreciated? How do we get back on the same page where we're not mad at each other?
Well, first of all, I don't think we should be mad at each other at all. And I think we do need to listen to people in our community. So, you know, as I talk to people, I understand they're not against fixing our buildings. I mean, that's one of the things I'm running on, is repairing our buildings and making sure they're in good condition. And I'm a conservative, so, I have heard that, those people over there don't want to fix it and it's them, and, I've heard that. I'm like, no, there's not one person I've talked to, not one conservative person I've talked to, not one Republican or Democrat that I've talked to that do not want the buildings fixed. So I know that is 100% across the board what we all want here in Victoria. But we want to know that we can trust how the money's going to be spent, and whether they're spending the money right or not is yet to be seen, as far as I'm concerned, because I just haven't, I'm up here, I'm not in there yet.
And in fairness, that's a good point. You're not in there yet.
So I'm not in there yet. So there's a lot of things I don't know. So I'm not here to sling, but I'm just here to say, we as a community have a trust issue. We're not sure how the money's being spent. I know they want money to build more, but yet we have buildings falling apart. How is the money being spent, and why isn't the maintenance being done on a regular basis, or is it being done on a regular basis? What are we missing? I mean, what I do know is that we added about 200, maybe 300 acres of new schools into Victoria, but we didn't increase our maintenance budget. That I know. We did not increase our maintenance help, and they don't get paid very much money per hour. So, are they able to maintain the buildings that we have? And if not, we need to fix that, because they need to be maintained.
No, I good point. And how do you also, kind of along those same lines, how do you help the community? First off, I'll say any government entity, but also primarily school districts, the way they get their income and the way they're allowed to spend it is very complicated. All their revenue that they get in, there's 27 different rules on how it has to be spent and all that, and it's very confusing to the public. And part of my deals is I get frustrated, like on the overtaxation thing, because people hear overtaxation and they think, as a whole we are overtaxed, and I do think taxes are too high across the board. I'll say that.
Yeah, definitely, our property taxes are.
But they more specifically with VISD, like bonds that were paid early, and those funds that at that time, that bond that taxpayers agreed to has been done. To me, in my mind, that money should go back automatically to the taxpayer. And then VISD can say, hey, look, we paid this bond off early. We'd like to turn around and ask you for this 8 cents back, or whatever it is, to pay this or to pay that or whatever. I understand they have the authority to make the decision to not do that. But because you can do something, I don't think that always makes it you should do something. And so how do you square with somebody like me that sees this overtax, with this money that could have gone to the taxpayer and it's not, and it's sitting there in the background just collecting to the tune of millions, $20+ million. How do you bridge that gap between people like me that are like, hey, you're over, like, we paid off that bond, bring it back to us?
I think it's really simple. If you say you're transparent, and that is your goal, to be transparent, then those conversations need to be happening, and it needs to be in the paper. And if we need to vote on something, on what to do with that money, then we need to vote on that. We need to be told, okay, we have this extra funds, we can't move it into the operating funds, so we can either buy a bond with it and it get interest, or we can do repairs with it, but we can't decide for ourselves. We need to vote on that. Then we need to vote on that. What are we going to do with that, whatever amount is? And that's what true transparency looks like.
Yes, ma'am. And I guess that was kind of my deal on the bond is I'm not even saying I was exactly right, but I was confused because it seemed like, the numbers were astronomically low to get all this stuff, but then, well, wait, we got this extra pool of cash over here, and when I started asking questions, nobody on the pro side had any idea what I was talking about with this extra taxation that was sitting over here. And to me, that's just, it's one of those things that, again, I would be a lot quicker to give my money to VISD if I just felt like I was being told the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
And I think most people I've talked to feel the same way. And I don't think we're being unrealistic in thinking that. I think we want to give to our community. We want to improve our schools. It's not a black or white issue. It really isn't. Although I did hear that on the feed and comments that were made. That because it's Stroman, or because it's in it's in the
and I really don't think that's it.
It's absolutely.
I really don't think that's it.
It's absolutely not it.
Yes, ma'am.
It really is about trust and where the money is going and how it's been spent and maintaining the schools. And again, it's you can say you're being transparent, but if people are not believing you, there's something missing. I think you said something earlier about a disconnect, and I think that's what I started finding out is I'm reading as I'm reading in the paper and I'm reading things about VISD and all the good numbers and all of this happening, they're winning awards, but then I'm looking at our test scores and we have some of the lowest test scores. Like even McAllen has higher test scores for blacks and Hispanics, and I'm thinking there's a disconnect here. Something's not adding up, because if we're doing that great, then our numbers should show it, right? I mean, they should. But if they're not, then something's wrong. And I do believe there's a disconnect there, and I'm seeing that.
One of the biggest things that I hear that's kind of frustrating is, well, you need to go sit in the school board meetings. You need to go to this. You need to go to that. The ISD held this meeting at Tuesday at 5 at whatever. Nobody was there and what have you. So that's on you guys for not going. I don't think it's that way. To me, because I'm not asking for the money. They are. To me, all of that falls on VISD, to me, to go out into the community, to earn the support, to get those things passed. It's become this finger-pointing thing of, on both sides of, you're not, we held our one meeting and nobody came to it, and so we did our part. Well, yeah, but you're asking for the money, not me. And so, what do we, I guess I just keep going back to that, bridging the gap, because I think we're friends and we're neighbors, and we've just been wedged against each other, and for their needs to be met, my side has to pay more, and that's fine, but what am I getting? And is there accountability there and all that? And I want to say this too, like I started off, when I started first looking at this stuff when I was a little bit younger, and I wanted to get my pitchfork out and go out there and rant and rave, and I villainized everybody in my mind, and they're Dr. Evil out to get me and all that. And the more I've got to meet them and talk to them, and I spent a lot of time talking to Mike Mercer and stuff, and I don't think that. I think all of them are doing the best they can. We just have different ideas on how to get there. And I don't think that they're villainous people that are sitting over there plotting ways to take over any of that kind of stuff.
No, not at all. They've been very
And
nice.
I also see how it's very easy to get defensive of your side of things, because I'm defensive of my side of things. And if somebody goes after Shaw Realty, or they say, well, I get defensive, and I'm doing why, and so I understand protecting your own and all of that. But that's just something I'd like to see, is the gap between VISD and the community come back together and see a little more unity there, I think, would just, on both sides.
And I'm running on restoring that relationship between VISD and the community. That's one of the things I'm running on. So restoring that, rebuilding our schools, rebuilding trust.
Yes, ma'am. One of the lately it's been politics and everything lately, sports, everything, but here they are in our schools as well. You've got the big Florida bill thing going on. You've got all these different battles playing out across the nation, and school boards and schools, from different woke agendas, CRT, social emotional learning, gender identity, sexual orientation, all this stuff. I'm so confused by that, because even when I graduated high school, I didn't know what Mr. Ramus did after work. I didn't know what Ms. Jurczyk, any of my they were my teachers, and to this day I feel like they helped mold me to get to where I'm at.
Right.
But I knew very little of them personally, or outside, or that.
Yeah, we're definitely in a different world today.
Yes, and I'm confused by. I don't understand a lot of this stuff, and I don't. More importantly, I don't understand the role of it in schools. And without kind of getting into every one of these things specifically, where do you kind of line up with politics and stuff in our schools? I'm just kind of a math, arithmetic, let's learn and leave that for your parents in your home and stuff. But now we have this whole thing is everybody has to be a First Amendment or a social justice advocate, activist or something, and it's like, do that on your own time and not in the schools.
I think we have a lot of grown-ups pushing their own agendas, and our children are the ones that are suffering for it. I mean, we have the highest suicide rates, confusion, depression, fights, battles, not learning. We have a lot of issues in our schools. Our kids are hurting, they're in trouble, and we're not listening to them. I mean, we're really not. I mean, I work with underprivileged families. I work with children that have behavioral issues, but most of their issues are based off of circumstances in their lives and things that they've gone through. But nobody's listening to them. They want to, just want to pass all these agendas, and these grown-ups think they know what's best for these kids, but it's really just pushing their activist agenda, and I don't think that's acceptable.
I look back now, and I feel so very blessed that I was able to make it through all my schooling and not have to deal, I just feel blessed that my teachers taught me, and that was the end of it. And
it's pretty overwhelming for the kids.
and
I talk to them, and it's overwhelming.
Because I don't think they need to be dealing with it. They're children, and why we're forcing this sexualization on them and all of this stuff.
Yeah, that's wrong.
I don't understand a lot of it, or and I hear, well, it's not in our community, but it is, and it's not. It may not be to the huge
well,
degree,
not yet.
It's creeping
not
in
yet,
in
but we
areas
really have to pay attention.
Yes, ma'am.
Because then it will be.
Yes, ma'am.
Completely.
No, valid point.
it is coming in.
I'm getting close to the end of my time here. I didn't get through all the questions. That was my fault. I talked too much, but. Before I let you go, is there anything that I'm forgetting or anything that you would like to, any points you want to hammer before I get out? I'm going to ask them how they can contact you and follow your campaign, but am I forgetting anything before I do?
No, I think you covered everything pretty well. I just want people to know that my primary thing is repairing the relationship between VISD and the community. I think that's very important. Restoring discipline in the classroom, and that's not, I talk to different people, and they talk about, we got to get tough with them. We just have to give teachers the authority to do what they need to do in their classroom again.
Yes, ma'am.
And the administration needs to back that up.
Yes, ma'am.
And I hear a lot of teachers don't have that.
I'll end with this. I was a little knucklehead, and I popped off in high school one time, and I got sent to the office, and Mr. Heiss, the principal, he made me take my wallet out, and I had to grab the desk, and whack, he gave me a good old lick, and he lit me up, and it hurt. Well, he called my mom right before that and told her what had happened and told her what he was going to do, and she said, good, do it, and when he gets home, we'll do the same thing. And she did, and so I got my lick from Mr. Heiss, and I walked out of there, and I went home, and I got one from my stepdad, too, right after that for doing it, but it was just one of these things that the parents seemed to back the school and vice versa. And there was a unity there that if I didn't do what I was supposed to, the school was going to light me up with their authority, and they were right to do so. And then my mom was going to light me up also, and my parents were going to light me up. But now it seems a real quick thing to go right after the teacher or go right after the a lot of times it's a student being a little bad or a little tough guy, and that's discouraging to see these teachers get their legs taken out from underneath them when they're the authority there.
Yeah, they need to be able to have that, but it does come with trust, building trust with the parent and the teacher, and just having that time. And I know it's tough out there. Again, I work with families that are in trauma and trouble, so there is a different way you need to handle them, but they do want discipline. These kids do, and they want boundaries, and they want to know what their boundaries are. And when they're not given those boundaries, it really puts them in a very bad place. So I think we have some good ideas, but we're going about them wrong, and I think we're hurting our kids in that process.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for running. How can people follow your campaign or reach out to you?
I have a Facebook page. And my phone number, 361-676-3588. That's my cell phone. You're welcome to give me a call and ask any questions you want.
What is your Facebook page? Do you know it off the top of your head?
No.
Okay, that's all right. But if they do,
Theresa Klacman campaign, probably.
Yeah.
If you just look up my name,
you were easy to find.
Yes,
ma'am. You were easy to find. Thank you so much for taking the time. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
Forgive
not
me
at
there. Thank you for taking the time, guys. One more time. Early voting is April 25th through May 3rd, and election day is May 7th. Thank you so much for taking the time to come in, guys. We'll see you at the next one.